is like TMI, but you know. And because in my mind, I thought, if I don't show him this mucus plug, he is not going to believe I am in labor. So, like, I don't know, you just feel like so cool because you're like, oh my gosh, it's finally happening. I've been waiting for this forever. So, yeah. Anyway, let's jump on into this birth story. I was in labor for about 2 days before I actually gave birth to my firstborn. I gave birth on a Friday and I went into labor on a Wednesday, and my due date was on a Tuesday. So on the Tuesday that I was supposed to give birth, my due date, obviously my baby never showed up, and I had to go in for my 40-week appointment at my doctor's office. So we go into the appointment and I'm already pretty set on asking the midwife if I can go ahead and be induced. Here's a little more of the backstory. My husband, he is in the military, so he was scheduled to deploy, but he had talked to his command and they decided that it was okay if he stayed behind for 2 extra weeks. So he had 2 weeks before he had to deploy. And I was really concerned that I was going to be going into labor and giving birth by myself. So when we went into my doctor's appointment, I went ahead and just asked if they could schedule an induction for me, because I'm like, this is the military, hopefully they'll understand. Okay, they didn't. So my midwife, she denied my request for an induction, but she said that he could go ahead and do the membrane sweep that day, which is supposed to be a way to like naturally induce labor. And she checked me and told me that I was only at a 0 and that she could go ahead and do the sweep anyway. And I was really, okay, this is my first baby, so I was really naive about how the process of a membrane sweep went. I thought a membrane sweep was just like, kind of like if you've ever had a pap smear. I kind of just thought it was going to be like getting a pap smear. I didn't think it's going to hurt or anything. Understand what they were about to do. So I was like, oh yeah, just go ahead, I don't care, just go ahead and do the sweep. So since I wasn't even dilated and she did the sweep anyway, that it hurt so bad. I couldn't even handle it. I literally was trying to get off the table. I couldn't handle it. And my husband, he is a awkward laugher, so when they did the sweep and I was in pain, it made him uncomfortable, so he laughed. And I mean, my husband and I have been together since 9th grade. I'm 27 now, and we've been together since 9th grade, so I kind of know him. So I knew he wasn't laughing because he thought it was funny. I knew he was laughing because he was uncomfortable, but still, it was really, really awkward after he left. And I just like glared at them. I'm like, why did you laugh? I have the membrane sweep done and I'm happy it's over, and we get in the car and we go home, and I just remember that entire day I just kept looking for any sign of labor. I just wanted to go into labor, so I started like researching, reading everything on Google, just trying to figure out when I was going to finally go into labor. And it was pretty much 24 hours exactly after my membrane sweep that I lost my mucus plug. And I went, so this is like TMI, but you know, I went to the bathroom and like I stood up and I looked in the toilet, and then I had lost my mucus plug, and I was so excited that I had lost this freaking mucus plug that I was like, oh my gosh, Erin, come look at my mucus plug. And because in my mind, I thought, if I don't show him this mucus plug, he is not going to believe I'm in labor. And he'll just be like, are you sure it was your mucus plug? Are you sure you're in labor? And it was just going to be a big thing. So I just was like, let's just show it to him, get this over with, and move on with our lives. So he comes and he looks at it, and then we both are like really excited. He's like, yep, that looks like a mucus plug, because we both were researching. It wasn't just me. we were both excited to finally have a baby. So we got really excited and started celebrating. And then that's when like contractions started happening, but they were just little ones. They weren't anything serious. It was just like little tiny like period cramps almost. And I don't know, it's your first baby, so any type of like contraction, like, oh my gosh, I'm in labor, I'm having all these contractions, I feel so like, I don't know, you just feel like so cool because you're like, oh my gosh, it's finally happening, I've been waiting for this forever and it's finally happening. So anyway, I started having these little tiny contractions that I thought were like this big, making this big difference and progressing me so far. And then they got stronger, like they stopped being just little tiny cramps and they started coming from my back all the way to my stomach. And then that's when it was getting like really painful and like to me it was unbearable because I had never experienced pain like that before. So I was like, oh, this must be it. We have to go to the hospital. And so, and let me just throw this out there. I was trying to time these contractions, but because I wasn't really sure how to time them because the way it was happening wasn't like a contraction would come on really, really strong and then leave abruptly. It was like they would trickle in and then you'd have like a contraction that was kind of intense and then it would kind of trickle away. So I'm like, do I start the timer when the contraction starts to trickle, or do I start it when like it gets really strong? So I wasn't sure about how to time the contraction. So anyway, my times I didn't think were consistent. I mean, I they weren't consistent. So but then I still had that like thought in my head, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So maybe they are coming at a regular pace and I'm just not timing them correctly. So I was like, let's just go to the hospital and let them check and see what's going on. So we go to the hospital and we're talking to the nurses and we're being all and whatnot. I'm still in pain, like it still hurts. And they hook me up to the machine and I'm having like contractions. You can see them coming up on the machine. And they'll like spike a little bit and then they'll trickle and then they'll spike. So I'm like, okay, I'm having contractions. And then she checked me and then she's like, oh, you're only at a 1. So I'm only at a 1. And she's like, you're only at a 1. And at this particular hospital, if you were not at a 5, then they would not admit you into the hospital. So I still had a long way to go before they would admit me into the hospital. And she was like, okay, go home, take some Tylenol, try to get some rest, and come back when you can't speak. I'm like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? I don't want to do this, please. Okay, I'm done. Let's just have a C-section, get this over with, because I can't do this. That's literally what I thought. I'm like, I can't do this, because this already hurts, and it is only a 1. And I'm supposed to come back when I can't talk. I don't think my body's gonna be able to do this. I just don't. So anyway, we go home and I take Tylenol, I do all that, and then the contractions are getting stronger and I'm like leaning over a bed trying to like make the contractions go away. And at one point I got in the shower because that they told me that would make it feel better, and it does. Like the warm water did help the back pain and stuff, and it just got to the point where I stopped trying to time them though, because I really didn't know what I was doing during this pregnancy. The second pregnancy, my second baby, is a different story. I was a little bit more aware of what was going to happen, so it was easier the second time around. And I can make that story I can talk about that in a different video. But anyway, let me get back on track. So I stopped trying to time the contractions, and I tell my husband, I'm like, Aaron, I really just think it's time to go. We really need to go to the hospital. And he like, we both were kind of like on the same page. We both had the notion that we were gonna go to the hospital and then they were just gonna turn us away and send us back home, and it was just gonna be disappointing. So he was kind of like trying to talk to me about staying a little longer before going to the hospital. And I'm like, Aaron, you don't understand. I cannot take this pain anymore. Please, can we please just go to the hospital? And so he's like, okay, let's go. And so we get in his car. And by the way, at this point in my husband's life, he has a little tiny 350Z. I had a car with a back seat, so we weren't really worried about it. But at this point, he had his little 350Z. And so I get into the 350Z, and it's a really low sitting car. So every single bump he hit on the way to the hospital, I thought I was going to die. I thought that baby was going to come out right then. And I remember thinking, I'm going to kill him if he doesn't stop hitting all these bumps. I'm literally going to kill him. We're not going to make it to the hospital because he's going to die. He's got to stop hitting all these bumps. And anyway, so we make it to the hospital, and my husband's in the military, so the hospital I was seeing was a naval hospital. So to get to the hospital, you had to go through the gate with the guards. And I just remember thinking, I do not want to have a contraction in front of all these guys standing up there. Like, that is going to be so embarrassing. And thank God I didn't. I managed. It worked out to where we got to the gate when it was like one of those breaks in between the contractions. And then after we got through the gate, I had another contraction. So it ended up working out, but it could have been a really embarrassing situation. So we get through the gate, and we get up to the hospital, and Aaron parks, and you still have a little walk up to the actual door of the hospital. And I just remember I couldn't get out of the car because it set so low and I was in so much pain. So Aaron, he came and he helped me out of the car, and I just remember I slapped the roof of the car, and I was like, ow! And I screamed. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I was just like, ah! And he was like, Angel, shh, you can't do that. We're on base. You can't be doing that. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm in labor. And then he helped. So that was kind of, I guess it was embarrassing. I don't really care. I was in so much pain. So he helps me walk up to the hospital door, and we walk in. To get to the labor and delivery floor, you had to go up an elevator. So we pushed the button to go up the elevator, and this little old man, janitor guy, is pushing his little cleaning cart out from the elevator. He stops and he looks at me, and I'm making the meanest looking face I think I've ever made in my life. I was so unhappy. I was in so much pain, and I'm just glaring at him. I'm glaring at this sweet little old man, and he's pushing his little cart out, and then he looks at me, and he looks at Aaron, and then he moves his little cart to the side, and he goes, congratulations, you're gonna have a baby. And I'm I literally wanted to slap him. I looked at him with the meanest look I've ever looked at anyone, and I'm like, you don't even know. I didn't say this, I thought this. I was like, you don't even know. We're gonna get up to the top floor, and they're gonna be like, oh, sorry, you're only at a 2. Go home till you can't talk anymore. And I believed that was what was gonna happen, that they were just gonna send us home again, and that I was just gonna be in pain for the rest of my life. So we get into the elevator, and I just remember telling my husband, I'm like, I can't believe he just said that. We're just gonna get sent home. And then Aaron's like, oh no, you never know, we might not, blah blah blah. We get up there, they hook me up to the machine, and they're like, oh yeah, we can tell you're definitely having some very strong contractions. And I'm thinking, no dip, Sherlock. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm having pretty strong contractions too. So then they check me. And remember, I can only get admitted into the hospital if I am a 5. So they checked me, and the nurses, they were really sweet. And she was like, oh, you're only at a 4. So, and I felt so defeated. I'm like, I am never gonna get into this hospital. And then she said, but I can stretch you and make you a 5, and then you can be admitted. And I didn't even think about it. I'm like, just do it. And so she stretched me to make me a 5 so I could be admitted. And then after as soon as she did that, when she was done, I looked her dead in the eyes. I'm like, I want the epidural. so then they go, and they get the, you have to wait an hour until the anesthesiologist can get to you. And so he, before he got to me, I'm like, what can you do for me right now? As soon as we got in the room, I asked the nurse, I'm like, what can you do for me right now? I need something for the pain right now. I don't know what she gave me, but she put it through my IV, and I still felt the contractions, but they didn't bother me. It was a psychological thing. I knew they were happening, but I didn't care, kind of thing. And it just, I don't know, it felt much better than the pain I'd been feeling for over 24 hours, because I had been in labor, at least 24 hours at that point. So any relief at that point was just nice. And then the anesthesiologist came, and he did my epidural, and he told me that I was I'm very proud of this, by the way. He told me I was the best patient of the night. And I told him, I was like, nothing you guys ever do to me will hurt me again. Nothing anyone does to me will ever hurt me again, because this is the most pain I've ever been in my entire life. And then he's like, oh, just wait till you start pushing. And I'm like, no, I didn't believe him. I'm like, no, nothing will ever hurt me again. That's what I said. And then I was able to sleep and relax and really enjoy the process at that point. I woke up. I still woke up super early though, because I was just so excited that I was gonna like meet my baby. So the day I got admitted was like a Thursday, like early morning. Or no. Sorry, it was like it was Thursday late at night, and then I was admitted like Friday in the early mornings, and then. So let's say like I guess I went to the hospital like midnight, and then I was admitted sometime in the morning on Friday. So I went to sleep and I woke up at like 6, and then I had my baby around 2 o'clock that Friday. So I was in labor for a good bit. Like I went from Wednesday to Thursday to finally having a baby on Friday. So anyway, I ended up pushing for 2 hours. Yeah, I pushed for 2 hours, and I remember that it didn't hurt until I was on the epidural, but I could still feel her like pushing down. Like when you have the epidural, you still feel all the pressure of labor, so you can feel when you need to push and stuff. So I had all that pressure, and then I remember when everyone was like telling me, oh, she's about to come out, and I felt her head like pushing down. My hand motion, sorry, it's a little graphic, I'm sorry. But I felt her trying to make her way into the world, and when she pushed down, I just remember her head. I felt every bit of that pain of her head coming out, and I didn't think I was gonna be able to do it. And then she came out, and then we did skin to skin right away, and she was 8 pounds 1 ounce, and she was 19.5 inches long, and she was perfect, and I love her so much. She is now 2 years old, so I've been a mommy for 2 years, and I wouldn't change a bit of it. And I just had my other baby 4 months ago, and that experience was a little bit smoother because I just knew what was happening. But yeah, so that's my birth story, and I don't know if you guys like it or whatever, but if you do, give it a thumbs up and subscribe and do all the other things you're supposed to do, or I'm supposed to tell you to do. Comment down below. Yeah, comment down below, and I will talk to you next time. See you next time. Bye.